Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. I will be covering the topic of Supra cables, how they sound, and this is just my opinion, so you might have your own opinion. Just because these are things that I'm hearing doesn't necessarily mean that you won't like the sound, so I'm just telling you that. Okay, I've listened to at least 100 Supra cables throughout the years, and that's covering most of the models. And generally, I have to say that I don't really like Supra cables because I find it to be a very lower budget entry brand that is pretty basic in sound. And yeah, trust me, it does change the sound. It definitely does. So that's also important, you know. Does it change the sound? It does change the sound. I just don't like how it changes the sound. So I've written down some these are almost only negative things I have to say, and I don't have a lot to say that's positive about Supra. Sorry. I mean, one positive thing I could say is that it's cheap, meaning that you don't have to pay a lot, meaning that they may sound better than some of the same priced cheap copy eBay cables that you can buy. And if you have some really raw, very basic, low level, harsh sound, it could maybe be interesting trying that. But yeah, basically, how I consider the sound is that it's restricted, it's plastic like, it's empty, it's lacking character. It's just lower level compensational sound. And like I've written here, instruments are bad, voices are bad, in my opinion. And personally, I prefer having basic $1 cables, because when you have basic $1 cables on, even though you don't have a lot going on in the sound, and the sound is very gray and deflated and boring and just lacking taste, at least you don't have anything steering the sound, locking the sound, manipulating the sound, putting like something like a layer on top of it. So yeah, I mean, I get it, why some people use Supra, but I think it belongs at the very bottom of the cable hierarchy. And these are some other things that I wrote. And I just find that when I had Supra cables back in the day, and I still visit friends that have Supra cable, I always find myself kind of tuning out mentally and just not enjoying music, you know. It's like I've written here, I've made a lot of cables in my life, and I'm pretty sure that the reason why they sound so bad is because the materials are pretty hard, the plastic is pretty hard, meaning that it's putting a lot of pressure on the threads. The threads aren't high quality, the plugs aren't high quality, and you can hear that. It for me, it sounds like they're basically using recycled materials that aren't very good. And can you blame them? I mean, when you're dealing with cables, usually in the Supra price category, we are dealing with cheaper cables. And how the hell are you going to, as a company, be able to earn money on selling cables when you have to put a lot of high quality stuff in it? It's basically impossible. I mean, let me give you an example. If I were to choose one set of power plugs and put it on a power cable, that power cable, without a cable, those plugs would most likely cost $200 to $300 US dollars alone. And a super power cable usually costs, I think, $50. So that kind of tells you about the quality of Supra. Could it sound a lot better with some proper plugs? Hell yeah, it could. But it also kind of beats the whole thing that you want to use Supra when you're starting in hi-fi and you're dealing with the lowest grade piece of equipment. So yeah, you know, just try it to start with. Get that first impression, maybe run it with it in a month's time, and then later on try something else. Try Vandenhoel, Cardas, AudioQuest, other types of cables, and just like compare it to what you think is maybe better. So yeah, let me just give you guys a quick idea of where it is that I am at mentally when I look at Supra. So we've got 0 here, and you've got level 100. 0 is the worst, 100 is the best. 100 is like the very best cables ever. If I were, let me just see, yeah. If I were to place Supra on this this ranking here, with 50 being around here, I would say that Supra is about right here, where the lowest models are around here and the highest models are probably around here. That's how I view Supra. And then you've got like brands like AudioQuest, where they probably start like here, and then the middle models, they probably go up to around here, and the top models that they have probably go up to around here. So AudioQuest typically has cables that are in a completely different price category. So can you compare them to each other? I would say no, simply because of that. So Supra, do they give you a lot of value for the money? You could argue yes and no. I would say no. I would personally just not buy hi-fi cables if it had to be on this level. I would just use normal, regular, shitty cables personally, because at least I save the money and I have a sound that is very basic and free and not steered in a certain direction at a very low level. If I wanted to buy a cable and start in hi-fi in a really good manner, I would get some higher AudioQuest stuff, or some lower Cardas. I mean, even the lowest Cardas is quite a bit above Supra. That's probably around here, and then the higher level Cardas is probably around here, close to the top AudioQuest. So, I mean, Cardas has a lot to offer for the money. AudioQuest, especially when you go from the mid to the top models, a lot for the money. I have to though say that I don't like AudioQuest when you're dealing with the very basic cables of AudioQuest. I have to be honest. I've listened to most AudioQuest cables, most Cardas cables, most QED, Vandenhoel, MIT cables, Supra cables, and the list just goes on and on. I've listened to at least a couple of hundred cable brands, listening to most of their models. And I have to say that a lot of cable manufacturers are doing the same things, that are creating the same bad things in the sound. And there aren't many brands, that are in this area here. And definitely there are like a handful of brands going from around 50 to 100. And just to mention a couple of those, Kondo, Audio Notes, there are a few other. I would perhaps set Yoma cables around 50. They do make some pretty awesome cables, and there's some other cables I just can't remember here now. But generally, manufacturers are doing a lot of the same things. You just can't see it because you everything that's going on in the cable is kind of shut in. So let me tell you this, just to help you along your journey on searching for a good cable. The thing that makes a cable usually very good is that you do the one thing that is most important. That is that you have the highest quality thread, copper, silver, gold, whatever. You have the highest quality. And just saying that it's OCC copper, or some type of gold, or 5N copper, or 7N copper, or whatever, you can't look at it from a technical perspective and say that's it, like that's the mark of measuring how good you are as a cable company. No. There's like a factor of 100 different things that have to go all together as one in order for it to sound good. Another thing, and this is a thing that doesn't have a hell of a lot to do with the cable manufacturers, and that is that whatever cable you put on your system has to match what's already inside the gear that you have. Speaker, amplifier, CD player, everything else that goes on. You have to take into the big equation that when you're dealing with a system, before you even look at the cables, you've probably got 7 different types of cables going on in your entire system without you knowing it. That could be on the tone arm, that could be in your rear, that could be in your CD player, amplifier, speaker, other stuff that you've got going on. Then you have to deal with a cable brand. And then you have to not just find a cable brand that you like, where you like the stock sound. You have to find the model where you feel that this here gives you a lot for the money and gives you like what you find is very interesting. So yeah, tough, really tough to deal with. And the way that I've solved it, going through basically everything, is that I realized in the end that in order for me to get the most optimal sound, I not only had to have the same cable in my CD player, my amplifier, my speaker cable, my speaker, and everything. I had to have kind of went off topic there. I just basically realized I had to have the same thing on every unit, on every single part of the chain, and I could only do that having audio note gear. So eventually, after about 20 years time trying everything and being frustrated and almost wanting to really quit this whole hi-fi thing because it was just costing me a lot of money, I just settled with audio note. And in the end, that made me really happy, but it took a lot of money trying basically everything on the market. And if I could go back, I would try it and save money on all the cables that I bought, and then just instead of that, just actually buying a car with that money, and settling with some like mid-class audio note cables, and then having that fit with my audio note amplifier and audio note speaker, and then it's just it's the same sound. And even though I don't have the highest audio note cables, at least it's the same sound. And that's the thing you have to know about cables, is that you could have a relatively low level cable that isn't really that good, but if you repeat it on 10 parts of the signal, CD player, amplifier, speaker, all the cables that you have and so on, suddenly you get access to a much deeper world where everything just comes together and somehow talks the same language. I've heard basic shitty Cardas cable, but it was repeated on every single part of the chain, and it just made things sound not suspicious, not lacking in this or that department. I mean, yeah, it didn't have the best clarity or 3D or whatever, but it just somehow came together, and you were listening to music for a longer period of time. And so you can actually beat the whole system by just basically being consistent and having the same religion of sound on every single part of the chain. So that's basically what I wanted to say. It took me a long time to say it, sorry. And then, yeah, Supra looks like this generally. And I've also tried their power bars. And I mean, it's okay to start with, but I mean, after a couple of months, you usually would be selling it or just not listening to music. That's how bad usually make their products, in my opinion. As you could probably hear, I'm not being sponsored by Supra. And as you could probably hear in my other videos, I don't have a sponsor on my audio channel, so that's a bit. That also has a lot to do with me being so honest. So you would never hear an official channel saying this, that is established and an authority, and testing every piece of gear on the market. You wouldn't hear them saying these things. They would kind of smooth it out a bit, and tell you that, yeah, it's pleasant, it's nice, it has a bit of a bass boost, and yeah, it's a good fit for the lower level budget audiophiles in mind. That's how they would sell it to you, But this is the harsh truth. I like listening to music. I like people. I like gear. I like food. I like drinking beer, stuff like. I enjoy life, and I feel that things have to be real. They have to be unfiltered, and they have to somehow just be truthful, but not to a degree where you're becoming overly cynical and thinking that everything is rubbish, because that's also a very bad thing in hi-fi that we also see a new trend of. But yeah, that's my honest opinion about Supra cables and cables in general. I will try and make more videos like this, just to give you guys an idea of cables like AudioQuest and Cardass and stuff like that. I mean, I haven't owned a lot of Cardass cables. I've owned a couple, but I've listened to Cardass cables at many friends' places, and they're really popular, mostly because they've managed to create a tonally warm, compatible sound while still having a reasonable amount of detail and integration. And yeah, I would have to say that Cardass is probably one of the better cables. Still far from the very best, but they're doing a good job on just delivering cheap cables for normal people with not too good gear out there. So yeah, I'll try and make more videos like this, and yeah, if you can like and subscribe, that would help me a lot. Have a nice day.